This is to advise that notice of time, date, location, the extent known agenda of subject meeting was prominently posted in the public place reserved for such or similar announcements on December 7th, 2022. Transmitted to the Times, the Princeton Packet, and West Windsor and Plainsboro News on December 7th, 2022. Filed with the Township Clerk on December 7th, 2022. Please call the roll.
Mr. Rivera,
Yes.
Mr. Chantel. Mr. Pianko,
Yes.
Begg,
Yes.
Barry, Sapplegate, Councilwoman Mandel,
Here.
Mayor Morata,
Here.
Vice Chairman Overton,
Here.
Chairman Clark.
Here. Okay, thank you.
Let me just say that proof of service and publication are in order, so the board has jurisdiction.
Thank you. Before we get started in the minutes, I just wanted to thank Curtis for stepping in while I was out ill, and for the other planning board members who stepped up and worked on some very complicated and matters before the board. So I want to appreciate everybody's, filling in for me. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Welcome back, Michael.
Thank you. Okay, first order of business is the minutes from October 26th. Any amendments, adjustments, clarifications that need to be made to those minutes? Nope, I don't see any, so,
Move approval of October 26, 2022 minutes as presented.
Second.
okay, please call the roll for, second by, the mayor. Just for those who are eligible to vote.
Mr. Chantel. I'm sorry, Mr. Pianko,
Oh. What do you,
To approve the minutes.
yes. I'm sorry.
Begg.
Yes.
That day.
I was not on the.
Councilwoman Mandel,
Yes.
Mayor Morata.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Overton.
Yes.
And Chairman Clark will also add.
That's correct. Okay, minutes approved. Next up is the minutes from November 2nd, 2022. Do I hear any amendments, changes, clarifications made to those minutes?
Yeah, I have a little bit of a question on the top of page 2. There was a motion to approve the resolution. We're talking about the Bridgepoint 8 resolution, I believe. And as modified with conditions and waivers, but I believe at that point, we added some modifications to it. I'm not sure if that's clear that we did. Or is that covered with as modified?
I think it's fine as is.
Okay, all right. Just want to make sure everything's included there. Thanks.
Anything else? Anybody?
Just in November 2nd, right? In adjournment, it says abstention by Mayor Marathi. I'll never abstain to adjourn meeting.
Oh, yeah.
I did abstain on the agenda because I wasn't there for that closed session meeting. So just take that last sentence out.
Right. Okay,
That's correct, yeah.
okay, any other changes? That said, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from November 2nd, 2022.
So moved.
Second,
Second by who, Curtis?
Yep.
Okay, Curtis, second, motion by the mayor. Please call the roll for those eligible to vote.
Only Andrea, me and Curtis.
There you go.
Councilwoman Mandel,
Yes.
Mayor Mirontak,
Yes.
and Vice Chairman Whitman.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries to approve minutes from November 2nd, 2022. Sorry, for the minutes for the closed session, we're not gonna read anything about them. Okay, a motion to approve the closed session minutes from November 2nd.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Andrea, second by Curtis. Can you please call the roll on those eligible to vote? This-
Councilwoman Mandel,
Yes.
and Vice Chairman Whitman.
Yes.
Okay, motion to approve, closed session minutes. Approved. Do I hear any changes to November 9th, 2022 minutes?
No.
Amendments, changes, clarifications? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve November 9th, 2022 minutes.
So moved.
Moved by Simon,
Second.
second by Andrea. Please call the roll on those
No.
eligible to vote.
I made the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, Honest made the motion. I apologize.
Rivera,
Yes.
Mr. Bag,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mandel,
Yes.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Whitman.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried to approve the minutes from November 9th, 2022. Okay, next up on the agenda, moving right along, application PB 06-01. It's a second amendment for 19 Roselle Road LLC. Amended final site plan. The property is zoned ROM-2 district. MLUL 121422. The property is a 7.73 acre parcel located at 19-21 Roselle Road in the ROM-2 zoning district. In 2006, the board granted preliminary final site plan approval for two three-story office buildings. Construction of the three-story building closer to Roselle Road and the bulk of improvements, including parking and stormwater management facilities, were completed in 2015. The rear building was not constructed at this time. At the unconstructed rear building, the applicant now seeks an amendment to the site plan approval in order to construct a two-story biolab/life sciences building instead of the three-story office building previously approved by the board. Is the applicant prepared to present?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. My name is Henry Chow from Hill Wallach, here on behalf of 19 Roselle Road LLC. As you mentioned, the original approval for this project was granted by this board in 2006. There were a couple of things, minor tweaks afterwards. The first one in 2008, when this board granted amended preliminary and final site plan approval in order to amend the stormwater management plan, stormwater management design. Then in 2020, there were two sign waivers granted by this board to allow the construction of a 75 square foot wall mounted sign for the unconstructed building that we're here for tonight. So that was recently granted in the summer of 2020. And we're now here to change the design of the unconstructed building. We're doing this mostly because of changed market conditions. Traditional office space is not, as marketable these days as it was back in 2006. This is something that kind of fits more the market, more of the types of uses in this region. So we are here to seek approval for the two-story building rather than the three-story building. It is very similar in terms of square footage, but because we're going from 3 stories to 2 stories, the building footprint does expand a little bit. There are also some tweaks to the site improvements, which, as you mentioned, the bulk of which are installed and have been in place since 2014, between 2014, 2015, when the first building was built. We have our architect and our site engineer here tonight, as well as representative of the developer, to answer any questions that may come up. But with that, I'd like to get our architect to testify about some of the building changes.
Yeah, how many witnesses do you have?
We have two, potentially three witnesses. Should we
Okay,
swear them
would
in
you
all at
like
the
to
same
swear
time?
in all at
Okay.
the same
Sure.
time, it makes it go quicker. Thank you.
If you could all raise your right hand, please, and do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth? Thank you. And if so, if you could please give us your name and spell.
And Matthew, can you just go give an overview of your educational background and your experience before municipal boards?
Sorry, how do you spell your last name real quick? Yep. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I have a Bachelor of Architecture degree. Here's the Institute of Technology, School of Architecture. I also have an EA.
Please use the mic because we're recording the proceedings.
Let me, okay, thank you. Let me start over. I held a Bachelor of Architectural degree from the New Jersey Institute of Technology. I also have a Master's in Business Administration from Rutgers University with a concentration in real estate development and urban land use. I'm a registered architect in New Jersey since 1994. I'm board certified by the National Council of Architectural Registration Boards, which allows me to have reciprocity in other states. And I hold upwards of 30 licenses right now that are active. I am the principal or president of Jarmel Kaizel Architects and Engineers located in Livingston, New Jersey. I have testified throughout New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York before numerous planning, zoning boards, and Superior Court multiple times.
Qualifications are accepted.
Thank you.
Unless anybody has any issues now.
So if it's all right, I'll just jump right into my testimony. Is where I place the boards okay? I know these gentlemen can't.
We have a.
Okay. So I think, Henry, we should probably mark this as Exhibit A1. 1A, okay.
A1.
A1. And this is dated 12/14, and it's building number 2, entitled Building Number 219 Roswell Road. And what this is an artist's rendering of the existing building, which you can see to the left, and the proposed building that you see to the right. And I just want to point out some of the differences and similarities between the buildings, and I'll walk you through the difference in our proposed building this evening versus what you had previously or what this board previously approved. I just want to point out that the existing building is 3 stories in height. The proposed building is 2 stories in height, but you'll notice almost the same height in terms of feet and inches. It's actually only about 4 inches shorter than the existing building. And the reason for that is we have higher floor-to-floor heights, which I'll explain in a moment. We propose to use the exact same materials, same brick that you see, same combination of polished concrete masonry units that are used on the first floor. And you'll see same window design where there's a transom above a ribbon, essentially, or punch windows. And in certain areas, there's glass to the floor, similar to the existing building. So from an architectural standpoint, the buildings are designed to use the same materials and look essentially the same, albeit one is 3 stories, the existing building, and one is 2 stories.
Below the first floor of the existing building, the masonry went from like smooth to sort of a rough. Is that type of pattern going to be continued in the new building?
Yes, it is, Mr. Vice Chairman. Yeah, same styling, same materials, and everything is proposed. So we're here tonight because previously approved for this site was what I would call a speculative office building, just office tenants. And we're here to ask to change that approval to a life science building. And you might want to ask what a life science building is. And it's a building that's designed not for standard offices, but really more for tenants or clients that have a specialty need, possibly laboratory space and experimental areas. So these types of buildings require a significant amount of ventilation requirements associated with fume hoods and exhausting of the building. So what we've done is we've increased the floor-to-floor height, or proposed to increase the floor-to-floor height from what was originally 14 feet 8 inches per floor to actually 20 feet per floor. And that will allow us to have a significant amount of room above the ceiling for the additional ductwork that this type of use requires. These types of tenants might be in the pharmaceutical industry, they might be biotech tenants, they might be an electronics lab. In some cases, we've done laboratories for companies in the food industry where they're testing different flavors or fragrances and so on. And this space is more popular today than speculative or standard office space, as you may imagine. So the other thing that we've learned working with our real estate brokers is a 3-story or the smaller, we'll say floor footprint was not as desirable for a life science tenant. They tend to be a little bit larger tenants and they like to be as much as possible on a single floor. So to run by some of the differences, 2 stories versus 3, floor to floor height proposed at 20 feet was previously approved at 14.8. Our overall building height, by the way, if we measure it from the slab to the roof is 40 feet. However, the way you measure height in your ordinance is from the average grade, which is actually a 4 and 5/16 inches below the finished floor of the building. So when you measure it to the top of the parapet. So our actual zoning height per the ordinance is 43 feet, 4 and 5/16 inches. And this is roughly 3.5 inches lower than the previously approved building. So that's why you see they look proposed the same. The square footages of the buildings are almost identical. The approved building is 37,777 square feet over 3 floors, and we propose to build 37,800 square feet, just 23 square feet larger. And that just has to do with the geometry of the building slightly. Otherwise, we'll say from a bulk standpoint, they're essentially the same. The original approval had a occupiable roof. We don't propose that here at all. And what I can do is very quickly show you the difference between the floor plans and elevations.
Well, before you do that, can you show on A1 where Rossall Road is located?
It would be to the left.
Thank you.
And I've got another appearance question. The parapet around the mechanical units on the roof, is that the same character of the existing building?
Yes, so both buildings have a parapet at the edge or perimeter of the
Right.
building, varies in heights based on the roof slope. But behind it, as you can see in the rendering, there's this, we'll call it horizontal white strip in our rendering. That is the mechanical screen. I have a roof plan. I'll show you where it's located.
But
We
that-
propose
that
the
roof
same
screen's gonna look
exact,
the same in both
same
buildings.
exact
Okay.
material,
Mhm.
which is a metal screen around the equipment.
Yeah, can I
It'll be
just
visible, yeah.
have a use question? Is there any chance that this building would have live virus, bacteria, anything that would require particularly high security or any, special type of treatment like that?
So at this time, we don't know who our tenants are. It's being built in a speculative basis. So I can't answer a definitive yes or definitive no. What I can say, however, is that any tenant that goes into this building would have to comply with the building codes, and certain tenants and certain uses might be also subject to health codes. So they would go through we'll say a verification and approval process if that was the case. Typically, they tend to be more on the scientific end in terms of different types of experiment. It could be pharmaceutical, it could be biotech, it could be a chemical company, it could be a food company as well. We just don't know.
I would say that if it's gonna be some biohazard material, they need a special license for that. And they'd have to apply to higher authorities than West Windsor.
Yeah, so
Just my-
Yeah, I mean, biohazard could be my throwing gloves into a garbage too. So I guess there's different levels of it, but if there is there are certain types of germs I don't think we'd want brought in here. So I'm just a little concerned that we you know, I don't care if you're working on shampoos or, you know, standard pharmaceuticals and stuff like that. I mean, I've worked in all those labs, so I know, I know what they're like. But I am concerned for like what I would think of as a true biohazard that would require extra special security.
Right. So again, I can't answer that, but what I can say is that based on materials used and materials stored, it triggers certain, we'll say catches or parts of the building code. So for example, if there are hazardous materials or explosive materials that are stored in there, it triggers additional life safety requirements within the building code. And I'll also say that I know that, for example, I've designed biotech facilities or biotech labs. They need to go through stringent health approval as well as FDA approval before they can do anything like that.
For chemicals, lab or something, the waste removal, how the waste will be removed? It's maybe for chemicals, I mean.
Well, again, I don't know who the tenants are, but they would be subject for example, if there was biohazard, for example, if there were sharps, although I don't, you know, injectable sharps, although we're not here for medical use, they have to be disposed of and collected in a certain way. So typically when you have a material that's a waste product of a process or an experiment, has to be stored in a safe way, disposed of in a safe way, records have to be kept. And, you know, all of those things would be subject to approval by your construction code official, by the health department, possibly county health department, possibly the Department of Health of the state of New Jersey, depending on what they're doing, or even the FDA.
So can we have a condition of approval on this one? Condition for approval for this kind of.
I don't see why not. I mean, you have to comply anyway.
Yeah,
You know, the condition
I
would-
think it already is, you know, is because it, as your attorney is advising, these are things that require additional agency approvals beyond the scope of a land use sport, such as construction code and so on. So they can't just arbitrarily come. I mean, I'm not an attorney, I'm a lawyer. I'm not an attorney, I'm an architect.
I
So,
don't see this
yeah,
any
I don't think
waste
there's
any
gonna-
different than doctors' offices that take blood and have to dispose in a certain kind of container that gets picked up by a certain hazardous waste courier, right? We all go to like these labs around town, and they have this container that says hazardous material and they throw it in there and then it gets picked up. I don't see anything. And if they get a tenant like that, they're gonna have to get approval and the waste will have to be disposed of in a, you know, a required manner.
Well, it's not just solid waste. I mean,
No, I
I assume there's gonna be hoods. There's probably gonna be some kind of hood, and that they're gonna have to have air cleaners depending on what kind of lab it is, or if there's, I have a feeling what Amos was probably talking about more was things that were going into the sewer system. And you know, what they're going to do to pre-treat to make sure that whatever goes into the sewer system isn't harmful. That's
Andrea.
probably what you were referring to rather than, you know. just-
Andrea,
Yep.
we do have Bristol Myers on same Rosdale Road. We do have another biotech company in the same complex as Blackstone. So they need to get FDA approval and everything for their manufacturing process above and beyond what the township code requires. So
Right, I'm
they're
sure
very-
state and federal, it's just that there's certain levels of things that might be a little less
Yeah, but I
comfortable.
mean, but for every level, there's a federal agency that will come and inspect and make sure they are complying with, especially in pharmaceutical industry, that they are complying with all the federal requirement. I mean, if they don't do that, the drug research is worthless. When they spend millions of dollars for one drug, so.
Mr. Jermel, in your experience, you know, when we're talking about the life sciences classification, what is the majority type of company that we're dealing with? Is it pharmaceutical companies? Is it, you know, companies that we see around here on Route 1 that are in the business of manufacturing pharmaceuticals, generics that happen to have lab space? Is that the type of use? That is,
Those are,
okay.
those are potential
Okay.
uses, yes.
and those types of companies are subject to FDA certification, FDA inspections, FDA approval, correct?
Correct.
Okay, all right. So, I think that's kind of, we don't have a tenant lined up yet, but in the realm of possibilities, that's the likely scenario, that it would be that type of tenant that you see up and down Route 1 here.
And it would be my understanding that even before they open the doors to this place, it would have to have, DOH, Department of Health approvals for all the protocols of disposal and air ventilation and emissions and all that stuff. Am I correct?
If it's that type of tenant,
If it's
yes.
that type of
Yeah.
tenant.
There are many checks in place.
Andrew, you good on that?
Yeah, I'd be more comfortable sort of knowing the parameters of the tenant, but there's nuclear waste in a lot of medical research, so I understand it'll be controlled, but I would just be a little more comfortable if we knew a little bit more, but go ahead.
Thank you. So the next drawing was actually submitted. I don't know if your
We have it.
policy is to mark it.
Yeah, me too.
Mark it. All right, so we'll mark this A2. And I've jumped ahead to a drawing that we've entitled SD6, first floor plan. It's dated November 2nd, 2022. And what it shows is two floor plans. The floor plan to the left, which is not quite a square, is the approved building. And the floor plan to the right is the proposed building. And as I stated earlier, the first floor that we propose on the right is 18,800 square feet, where previously it was 12,433 feet. Both buildings, will say up and down the page, are 125 feet. So that width is unchanged. The original building was 101 feet, 4 inches, and we now propose 152 feet. So the building's longer. It has some features to it, such as a little bit of a recess at the two entryways to it, and the second floor, which is slightly larger, covers them. One feature that this building has that the other building didn't have is a loading dock. Okay. And we've proposed that that's sort of what we'll say the rear side of the building, which I believe would be the north side of the building. And we don't really foresee a lot of truck traffic coming to this facility. I believe loading docks are a requirement of the zone, and these two buildings, I think, would require actually 3 loading docks or 3 loading zones. There are none there now, and the original approval didn't have any. We propose to add one because the type of tenant that comes into this building first, when they move in, will have equipment that will probably need to come in a larger vehicle to get in and out of the building. That could be lab benches, that could be hoods, it could be an autoclave or something similar those lines. And then they also frequently have things like nitrogen or oxygen that they use in their lab processes that typically are depleted in a month's time or several weeks' time, that would have to be brought and replenished. We don't have a loading dock or a recess proposed. We propose to put a scissor lift there that's able to lift up to any size truck. Typical loading dock is 4 feet high to the tailgate. This will be able to go up that high, or, if it's more of a big FedEx type truck, that just lower anything heavy and take it off. So maybe, frequency is not on a daily basis, maybe once a week or once a month, a truck might be here. So we don't foresee it being, we'll say, an aesthetic nuisance to the building. I know that your landscape review asked for more landscaping, which we would be happy to provide, and our civil engineer can talk about that a little bit.
Where's that loading dock? You have a circle, sort of a pedestrian circle, just as a
It's
spot.
on the opposite side.
So it's
of
on the
building.
direct opposite side in the back near where the woods are.
Yes.
Can you point on A1 where that would be?
No, the bottom.
No, on the,
Down.
yeah.
That's
Sorry.
fine.
It's to the right of the elevation, but it's not on this corner, it's on the opposite corner.
It's on the far side or on that, where your finger is?
It's on this side of the
It's
building,
on that side of the building.
right? What, our,
Is it near where you currently, I think, have some garbage stuff?
I believe
That's-
so.
I went out
yeah,
to the site
our-
and took a look, so,
yeah.
Yeah,
Our-
it's opposite the dumpster.
yeah.
Our
Mhm.
our next witness will present to you the overall site plan, and I think it'll become clear for you if you wouldn't mind just waiting for that.
And Mr. Jermel, just for purposes of addressing the design exception we need for that, can you explain why one loading stall is reasonable enough to serve the purposes of this use, and why it's not practical to have three?
Yeah,
Uh,
it's candidly, it's just a small building. It's not a very large building. It's less than 40,000 square feet. It might be one single tenant, it might be, two or three, but there's not a lot of coming and going requirements, and there's no manufacturing proposed here that would actually not be allowed in the zone. It's just more experimental type of research that would go on here.
But isn't the M and ROM2 manufacturing? David?
Limited.
I can't see, but I can show you.
Dave.
I think that it is, however, under 200-2, A1, we permit research and testing, analytical and product development laboratories not providing the manufacturing, sale, process, warehousing, distribution, or fabrication of material products or goods, except as incidental to the principal permitted uses. So manufacturing is not identified as permitted use in that district, in that line.
So the name of the zone is a misnomer?
In parentheses, it says research office and limited manufacturing. So I guess the limited manufacturing in parentheses is more accurate, but I don't know why they called it the ROM instead of the ROLM. Maybe ROM, the always much ROM. Oh, limited manufacturing is permitted, yeah, identified as permitted use. Let's see if we have a definition of limited manufacturing. We do have a definition of limited manufacturing, which is an activity which involves the fabrication, reshaping, reworking, reassembly, or combining of products from previously prepared materials, and which does not involve the synthesis of chemical or chemical products or the processing of raw materials. Limited manufacturing includes light industrial operations such as electronic, machine parts, and small component assembly, as opposed to heavy industrial operations such as automobile assembly or milling activities. So to get back to the chemical aspect of this, chemical and chemical products are not included in limited manufacturing.
Thank you. The last sheet I'm going to show you, or mark for now, is, we'll call it A3. This is proposed elevations. And this is a comparison of what we're calling the south elevation of the building. So the upper plan shows the approved building, which was 3 stories. I'll point out that it did have roof screening, but it also had a stair bulkhead. Actually had 2 stairs that went to the roof because the roof was occupiable. It's proposed to have a rooftop amenity space. We've eliminated that in our proposed building, and you can see now that it's just 2 stories as my A1 rendering had shown, and it shows screening of the mechanical equipment on the roof. And that essentially completes my testimony, and I'd be pleased to take any questions the board or public has of me.
Just one follow-up.
something?
I think there weren't many issues in the review memos that were left unaddressed, but there was a question about green building practices.
Yes.
In Mr. Dobromilski's review memo. He asked that we present testimony regarding the green elements associated with architectural design. And I guess there was also a question of whether we had completed the green building practices part of the application checklist.
Okay, I apologize, Mr. Cho. Thank you for reminding me of that. Yes, so there was a green checklist submitted with the application that was completed. You know, I skimmed through that checklist this evening before the meeting. A lot of it has to do with site features, which our civil engineers will talk about, things like stormwater control, impervious pavement, landscaping, and so on. But for the building specifically, we are proposing to use green features. In fact, pretty much the building code and various mechanical codes almost force you to today. And some of those things would be, for example, using a white roof membrane, a TPO roof membrane. So that will help reduce heat island effect and reflect the sun. There was a question about whether or not the rooftop can be solar ready. The roof can be designed structurally to handle solar panels and the electrical year design so that it could take in an inverter. I don't think we have a problem doing that.
It does seem, I forget which drawing it was, that you have a lot of equipment up there.
Correct.
Is there some way that you could position that equipment so that it would be logical or economical to actually put solar up there?
So Councilman, I thank you for that. I was actually about to say that there is a lot of rooftop equipment that happens in these buildings that would probably, and combined with the screen, would cast a shadow. To the best that it makes sense, we can do that. I mean, the reality of it is it's a small roof, and even if you covered the entire roof, it wouldn't generate a significant amount of power to make a dent, but it would help. So we would certainly examine that when we get to the point of doing construction documents for the building. All the lighting inside the building would be proposed to be LED, low voltage lighting. The HVAC system would meet the ASHRAE requirements for energy efficiency. And the interesting thing about a building like this is it actually has a lot of outside air to make up for exhaust air. And sometimes that can be, we'll say, a hog on the energy. So we would utilize things that we call heat exchangers or heat wheels. So as the air is being exhausted from the building, it's pre-tempering the air that's coming in. They pass by through a thin membrane. So on a day like today, when it's 30 degrees outside and it's 70 degrees in the building, and the 70-degree air is coming out, as the 30-degree air comes in, it'll pass it and warm up before it has to be heated, for example, to come into the building if need be. And toilet fixtures would be designed with low flow devices or sensors.
Would you be looking at LEED certification for the building at all? And if so, at what level?
At this time, it's not proposed. It may be a desire of one of our tenants, and if it was, we would consider it at that point. But we would follow LEED or green standards in terms of the design of the building.
Okay,
Correct.
yeah, that's
Thank
all
you.
we have for you. Yep. Is there anything else that you would like submitted written in terms of written material for the green practices?
So I think just if the application wasn't fully completed,
Dan needs to be sworn in.
Oh, sorry. I'm going to swear you all in at once, if I may. If you could, yeah, just raise your right hands. If do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Dan Gabrilski, landscape architect in the township. So I guess there was two things. One was just, if I don't remember for this application, there was one application where the architectural elements, it just had a note that said see architect or something. I'm not sure if it was this one or not. But if you just make sure that form is filled out completely, and then that could be a condition, so we know. And then the last thing was in my report, just the screening of any of the mechanical elements, if you could just indicate that that's possible, and just if there's a note could be added to the plan saying that's what'll happen, so that when we get to construction, we can make sure that occurs.
There's actually, the screening is actually physically shown on the drawings now. I see.
Okay. So next we have Joe Hanrahan, our site engineer.
Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Joe, can you give your educational background and your experience before land use boards in New Jersey?
Just spell your last name as well, please.
Sure.
Joseph Hanrahan, Hanrahan.
Okay.
I am a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. I have a civil engineering degree from New Jersey Institute of Technology. I've been working in this field of land development engineering since 1992. I've been licensed in New Jersey since 1997. I'm licensed in 13 additional states. I've testified before numerous boards throughout the state, including this board, although it's been about 15 years or so since I've been in front of this board.
Is your license current?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. Any problems with, accepted?
Thank you. So the project itself, I'll go quickly through the existing conditions. It's lot 62, block 9, contains 7.73 acres, located in the ROM 2 zone, and it has approximately 400 feet of frontage on Roselle Road. If I could mark an exhibit here, what I presented before the board here is an aerial exhibit of the property and the surrounding area. A4. That'll be A4. This exhibit, basically north is straight up. You have Roselle Road on the north, on the right side of the page, and you have the site centered on the page, outlined in bold black line work. So what you can see is, as was described by Mr. Jarmel and the chairman's introduction of the project, the site is substantially developed today in accordance with what this board approved back in 2006. The board approved 2 3-story buildings, one being 62,500 square feet. That's the front building, which is constructed, and the back building, 38,000 square feet. Again, both 3-story. So basically, all the improvements are installed and constructed, including the parking lot. You're left with a pad site behind the front building for the second building, which was never constructed. So if I could move on to the next exhibit, which will show the proposed building. This is a rendered exhibit of the site plan. There was.
You marked that A5.
This is be A5. This is a site plan rendering as shown as labeled on the title block. So this is a blow up of the site. You can see the front building. You have the aerial imagery behind the image as a base map, and then you have superimposed on that the proposed building behind the front building. So again, you have Roselle Road on the right side of the page. North is generally straight up. So you have your 62,500 square foot building and the front on the right side of the page, and behind that you have your 38,000 square foot building to the back of the site on the open pad that was that is there today. As you can see, this footprint is slightly larger, as Mr. Jarmel had described, than what was previously approved. Again, that's because it's a 2-story building versus the 3-story building. Same gross floor area. So it went from 12,700 square feet of footprint to approximately 19,000 square feet of footprint. So you have the 2 stories at 19,000 square feet for 38,000 square feet of gross floor area. So what happened to fit this second building within that pad area, since the actual footprint has grown, we had to remove the back parking lot that's installed today and was previously approved was 2 bays of parking. So in order to accommodate this larger footprint, we kept the same face area at the plaza, and we've extended the building to the rear, and we've removed the first bay of parking in that 2-bay parking lot at the rear of the site. And how we're able to do that, how we're able to remove the parking, is that the life science use, the lab use, does not require as much parking as the previously approved office use. So we're able to reduce the parking area, reduce the vehicular impervious area, and propose this building and still comply with the parking requirements of the township. Just to touch on that, we still previously the project needed a waiver because it was 15 stalls above what was required. This has a similar situation. We're actually more than what is required. 286 stalls are required. This project proposes 304 stalls. So we're 18 stalls more than that, which is required. The previous waiver that was granted was 15 stalls more than that was required. So we're very similar to what was previously approved by this board as far as parking goes.
How about electric vehicle charging stations?
EV
Electric-
stations?
Yeah, EV charging.
Yeah, this project, although not required, proposes 3 EV stalls to comply with the requirements, but it's actually not required for this use. But because of the technical issue of not being an amended approval, just a final approval, but it does comply with the EV regulations of 3 EV stalls.
How many stalls are you removing with that expansion toward the back?
We go from 345 stalls to 304 stalls, so 41 stalls.
And Mr. Hanrahan, just to be clear, we're still way over on the number of stalls, and we actually need a design exception to have more stalls than what are required by ordinance here.
Exactly. So we still are above what is required. We're actually 18 stalls above what is required, but that still requires a waiver from this board.
And just to clarify, when you say you're adding 3 EV stalls, those are going to be with chargers, not just make ready?
I'd have to defer to the applicant on that as to when those chargers will be installed.
We have Mr. C, Representative President of Mountain Development.
Yes, they will. The chargers will be installed.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to just touch on some of the waivers. They're generally previously approved waivers, but things have changed slightly. I touched on the parking already. There is a waiver for the ordinance requires all sidewalk to be pervious concrete. There is existing sidewalk around the existing building and actually partially around the pad of the second building. That's standard concrete. We'd like to match the standard concrete. I would like to add that this project, every parking stall that's been constructed and is required for this project is porous pavement. So I think we more than make up for what we're not going to give with which we propose not to give on the pervious concrete to match the existing standard concrete is more than made up by the porous parking stalls throughout the entire parking lot. With regard to parking lot trees, the ordinance requires 62 parking lot trees. 21 were previously proposed, and that waiver was granted, as I understand it. This project actually improves upon that slightly by additional 3 trees. So we're going from 21 to 24 trees. That waiver was previously granted. The parking lot is constructed, it exists. We're actually removing a portion of the parking lot. So we'd ask, based on improving that existing condition, that waiver be granted. With regard to the loading stall that Mr. Jarmel had touched upon, that loading stall, as he described, is at the back southeast corner of the proposed second building. So that loading stall will allow a tractor trailer. There is a tail that was added to the parking lot to allow for the maneuverability and the backup of that tractor trailer into the loading stall, and circulation for tractor trailers, emergency services, and trash vehicles has all been presented on the plan to demonstrate that this site can accommodate those vehicles. Again, as far as that waiver goes, this project was previously approved without any loading stalls. 3 were required, 0 were proposed. So again, we're improving upon a previous waiver, whereas now we have 1 loading stall instead of 0. And that one loading stall will be for the one building that is being proposed. One additional building. I would like to add that we're still within the MIC coverage of the ordinance. And just to again state that the actual impervious coverage, the drivable surface coverage has actually decreased by just over 8,000 square feet. You do have the clean, what we call in our industry, I guess, you have the clean water of the roof has expanded, but the actual dirty water of the parking lot has decreased.
Okay.
That it?
Any questions for
That's it? Any questions?
Mr.
for
Henry?
this, witness?
Did we get the fire report? Because I didn't see it.
Shouldn't he, I'm sorry, shouldn't he issue a report that says I have no issues?
We actually have a memo from him, September 28th to the TRC. Yeah, to the TRC where he asked for, he said access for emergency vehicles appears adequate. Additional fire hydrant proposed is adequate for fire protection, water service to the site. Under miscellaneous, he asked for a lockbox to allow immediate access by the fire department to be installed at the front entrance of the building, which we agreed to do. The second bullet point, position of the fire department connection that supports the fire sprinkler system shall be at the front of the building, which we also agreed to do. Fire department requests the installation of fire department standpipes in each stair tower. And then he sets forth the national standard for the hose outlets. And I think we agreed to that. Yes, correct.
Okay, and he's okay with the turning for the fire trucks? Okay,
Okay.
so
So again, shouldn't he send a report saying I have no issues? Okay. So I understand. Do we need to make it a condition that a report's issued by Chief Lynch to accepting the?
I would just say that he's gonna review the plans for resolution compliance.
Okay.
You can certainly make conditions of approval, the list that you just read,
Yes.
which
Okay,
are
that-
pretty
that-
standard.
That's
this,
fine.
you know, those
We can't-
usually go into conditions of approval.
Right, we
Yeah.
can't force them to write the report, but we can make conditions that the things that you've agreed upon in what he's stated unnecessary.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'll go to another topic. The screening of the loading dock is just vegetation only?
Correct. At the moment, we just proposed vegetation, but I would like to add, we'll adhere to Mr. Dobromilski's requirements for that. I think he does suggest additional plantings or a screen wall. If we, we'll satisfy his needs on that, the screening for that loading dock.
And Dan, you're okay with their response?
The board is.
Yeah, it's not exactly a residential area.
Right.
No, it's not, but.
Yeah, but
it'd be-
yeah, we do want it to look
I mean,
good.
I just didn't want it really exposed to the rear parking lot, you know?
I think ultimately it'll come down to them showing us exactly what the scissor jack looks like and how, whether it needs to be screened or not. So I don't know that they've clearly specified what that is yet or no. And once they get to that stage, we can determine if they need to screen it or not.
So what condition would you want added there?
Just that they have to work out the screening of that with the landscape architect.
Okay.
And that's not an issue for you, right? To work it out with Dan, what?
That's fine.
Okay, thank you.
So how do you, the stormwater, do you depend on the porous parking lot spaces there as part of your stormwater? And is it limited to that one retention basin you've got in the front there?
Yes, and again, the stormwater is the same as what was previously approved. What we did have to do, so yes, the porous paving addresses the water quality requirements of NJDEP, and our bio retention basin in the front handles the detention, again, water quality and recharge requirements of NJDEP. And this was all designed to handle this project as it was previously approved, and it's basically the same project now. except now we have a little bit more clean water runoff than dirty water. This is actually an improvement as to what was approved previously. But the stormwater management system still complies with the regulations as it was previously approved. The one thing we did have to do, and I don't want to get into too much technicality, is we had to rerun the detention basin with the new stormwater rainfall amounts. And we've done that, and we've adjusted the outlet structure to account for that, but it's the same system.
You're talking about putting this two-story building on top of an existing concrete pad that's been there for 17 years?
No, I'm sorry, when I say a pad, it's just a pad site, like an open green grass area.
Oh, okay,
I'm
thank
sorry.
you.
Yeah, just almost like a retail pad, I meant it to be, when you don't have that portion of the retail site constructed.
That's it.
That's what it looks like then? Yeah. That's it.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
No, my fault.
Yeah, nothing else, right?
Not from me.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, please call your next witness.
So the only area I believe we haven't covered is the operational information that Mr. Novak requested in his review memo. Stuff like hours of operation, number of employees, deliveries. Have a tenant in place yet, so it's kind of hard to provide testimony on that. But we do have Mr. Steve, who is the president of Mountain Development, and he's the person in charge of dealing with prospective tenants. So to the limited extent he can answer those questions, we can present him, but I'm just not sure how useful ultimately that will be at this point.
I'm curious. If there's something to present,
Can it be a 24-hour run facility?
Do we want to see, can you come up and
Do
take?
we want a 24-hour run facility there, or do we want to,
Just get the spelling of your name, please.
Michael, Michael, Seeve, Seeve.
Thank you. And you're a principal at the,
Yes, I'm a principal in the entity that owns the real estate.
thank you.
What's the regulation on the office building at this point? Do we have anything with hours or anything?
is there a zoning ordinance for hours?
Yeah, I don't think there's.
Okay.
There's no conditions on the office building next to it, or?
As between the two of us, Henry can probably speak more experience in the office building than I can.
We have people there pretty late, but for the most part, it operates like a general office building. People, start leaving at 5, and it's pretty cleared out.
No, I hear you as far as people working late or having dinner there. I guess my question is more in the line of 3 shifts, 8 hours each, running 24 hours a day kind of thing. I don't know, if we want something like that, I don't know if we can limit that.
Mike, the only area where we limit it is in the Pennsylvania redevelopment area for a specific retail use. There's nowhere else in town.
Okay. Okay. And it's not
For
really
what it's worth,
residential area.
it's not what we have in mind.
Okay.
Yeah, our
okay.
approach is a more traditional pharmaceutical
Got it.
biotech
Okay.
kind of use that's a daytime use.
I just have one very generalized, and I guess, somewhat anecdotal question is, I know you can't give an estimate of number of employees, but in your experience typically, does this stuff that you use generate fewer or more employees than what we would call like a traditional office use?
Well, it definitely creates far fewer employees than what we would at least call a pre-COVID office use. Post-COVID is a question mark.
And that is.
We'll just
somewhat
confer it together.
reflected already in the township code as
Yeah.
well, when you look at parking standards. The parking standards for a, lab space are less than what you would typically see for an office. That's all I had. Thank you.
Well, if the scientists can do their experiments from home, they're working remotely for sure.
But I saw some waivers on bicycle spots and things like that. Did anybody go into that?
We have bicycles.
There are
across the
bicycle
board.
racks.
Yeah,
outside.
there are. I
Yeah.
don't think we need any waivers
Yeah.
for that.
Okay, there was something about how many covered.
They're
and how
never
many un-
used. I've never seen a bicycle out there, but they're there.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, who wants to start first? David?
Might as well, I'm on a roll. Thank you very much, everybody. For the record, this is David Novak from Burgess Associates, Township Planning Consultant. We had a memorandum dated December 5th, 2022, where we provided a little bit of an overview of what the property is, the proposed improvements, master plan and zoning considerations, and then we had a number of just questions and comments regarding changes from the prior plan and operational information, building design, parking, loading, and circulation. I believe that the applicant has addressed all of those questions and comments, and they touched upon the waivers that we had identified as well. So as of right now, I'm satisfied. I have no other additional questions or comments. If the board has any questions for me, obviously, more than willing to answer them.
I have a question, David, on regarding acceleration, deceleration lanes. Is that necessary? I mean, on your page 5.
Item 8.
Yes, that was a waiver. I believe that had already been granted. 200-29J typically requires some sort of acceleration or deceleration lane.
It's not really applicable to like this location, right?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay.
I think that's this is getting in more into engineering and traffic, but I think if this was a
Okay, so
highway
just
type of
kinda-
location, you probably want something approximating that, but I
Okay.
think for this type of use, I don't think that's necessary.
And you're okay with their answers to all the waivers they've required, stormwater management, I think, well, that's not you, right?
No.
And, wall signage is okay?
Wall signage, yes, the wall signage had actually been approved previously for 75
Okay.
square feet. They're proposing something that's actually less than that.
Okay,
And if you look at if you go to page 7 of my memo, you can kind of see that green space, which is where the building will be. If the board remembers back in 2020, I know that was a pandemic and a half ago at this point. But one of the justifications for the granting of that signage is that building is so far away from Roselle.
right,
It's difficult to see. So even with these improvements that are being proposed, I don't think this building is gonna be very visible from the traveled road.
okay. You'd have to be on site, kind of like see, okay, is it the one on the left or the one on the right? kind of thing?
Exactly. That would be my best guess.
And there's no proposal for a monument sign at the street, is there?
None that I saw, no.
There already is
Does it
a
have space
sign.
for the new tenant? For
It
the new building?
does.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
And there's a bowl in the front too.
Yeah, but there is no new monument sign that's proposed.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else?
Just for emergency services, it would be beneficial to have a number on the building.
Yes, that was part of our sign approval in 2020 that came up. So that was a condition of our approval back then.
And that was a waiver that was granted for letter height, I believe.
Right, yes.
Okay.
There was one thing saying this was 19 and the other was 21, but if you look up 21, it's not, is that all settled now?
21 is the existing building, 19 is the one that we're
Will
talking
be the
about
new
tonight.
one. Okay.
Hey, Rob, you had something you wanted to add?
Yeah, and I don't know the right time to ask this question. I don't know who I should direct it to. Maybe it's Mateen and you, Mike. But often the questions of the board members are a function of our sensibilities and our values. And well, I'm the last person at this table because I work in the industry that would want to restrict, Mr. Steve, your ability to lease this space, which creates ratables for us. I want to know if we're within our province to restrict the developer owners from leasing space to a tenant that may engage in animal testing. And again, I don't know where it falls in any of this discussion. It's just something that I think about, and does the board feel that that's something worthy of consideration? I certainly don't want to restrict the board as one sole dissenter, but just to see if that's something within our province.
I'm assuming, Dave, that that's not specified anywhere in the ordinance.
I was
Or is
just
it-
looking through to see if that's in our ordinance or not. Let me look through. I don't know the answer to that one in terms of that, at least from a zoning perspective. But let me look through and see what might be in the ordinance that I can glean from, if anything.
We don't have anything in there. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right, so, yeah, I mean, I guess that's why I prefaced it the way I did, but that was 40 years ago, 30 years ago. I mean, we've all evolved since that time. I shouldn't say we've all evolved, but many of us have evolved since that time. And I said, again, one dissenting vote, I don't want to impact this approval. But does anybody else have any thoughts or consideration on something like that? Or maybe it's just not as important to others, and I understand that completely.
Is that something that you would agree to without a problem, or?
I'll make a quick statement on that. First of all, the developer is gonna wanna lease it out to a tenant that's not gonna cause controversy or have PETA here protesting, right? So they may wanna examine that within themselves on whether they want a facility that's doing animal testing. So I don't know, I don't know, I feel like the market will tell them not to do it, but that's just my point of view.
Mark, the board could enforce that. They could ask for the.
Right.
You can certainly ask. I think, given if, yeah,
Well, so the question would be, is that something you would agree to at this point?
I mean, as a land use attorney, I typically like to defer to what's in the zoning ordinance, what's in the design standards, what's in the master plan, and it's just getting into other areas that are kind of arbitrary in terms of the law, in terms of the land use law, is a slippery slope. So I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, but if my client is okay with that, I mean, if that's a limitation, then that's going to be their call. I'm not sure if we're prepared to deal with it. We haven't discussed it internally at this point.
I mean, we can just recommend it, but my wife works in pharmaceutical industry, so her job depends on that kind of thing. And again, animals are different from dogs to mice. It's various capabilities, and now they are using less and less because they can do computer simulation. So be sensitive about that we don't want controversy, like he said, Peter coming and doing experiments on monkey and stuff.
We haven't contemplated that the way that your question. Tell you on a personal level, I would find it hard to sleep at night. That's what we were doing in the building, but we're not the end user, so we need to sort of engage with the people that have talked to, and I guess understand what their requirements are, but it's not, certainly not our intent, certainly not something that we'd be pleased with, but I guess, small caveat, it's like, when we lease space to a law firm, we don't dictate the cases they take on, or all of their clients, or all of their technical things we agree with, and there is a little bit of risk in that regard that we, that part of what goes along with doing business with large global companies is sometimes, scope of their activities is beyond what we would imagine.
Now, had I replaced animals with lawyers, you wouldn't have objected. I can see it. And again, I'm just raising the question, really just to see if there's a climate for that, and it might not be, and that's okay.
I think I would say, given that there is a precedent for it with the American cyanamide and that there's been no change in the zoning, it would be hard to require it. Put it that way. I also would say, there's a big difference between testing that goes on with monkeys and testing that goes on with, mice. But that's where you get into the arbitrariness. If you're going to, important cancer research involves testing with mice. Are you going to dictate a tenant, opportunity based on that kind of prohibition? So
that's why I asked you if it was within our province. It sounds to me like it's not. And,
Just as a follow-up too, I did just do a brief search through our zoning regulations. There's really not much that pops up. The only standards regarding zoning that pop up regarding animals deals with veterinary clinics, and there's certain standards that apply to animals there, that they can't be cremated or disposed on site, certain amounts of floor area and how they can be kept overnight, but that's only for veterinary clinics, so nothing that would really apply to this type of use. But I wanted to get back to you.
now, had it been lawyers, there are more of them, first of all.
Lawyers are actually prohibited use of this.
Lab technicians.
For
don't
some
go-
reason, planners are permitted. I didn't do that. Zoning on this one.
Hold on, I'll-
Need a use variance
Hold
for
on.
this.
the lab technicians don't. go
That's
far.
beyond the prerogative of this board. We can't do use variance.
You okay, Rob? with,
Just
the
reason.
debate?
Yep.
Okay.
Is there any statement you're suggesting we make, Rob?
No, I think what I wanted to hear was the board's feeling about it, and as often happens in my life, I'm a dissenting voice, and that's okay. You know, that's how we.
Well,
Okay. David, anything else?
That's all I had. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
Thank you. Okay, who wants to go next?
I'll go next.
Okay, please do.
Our report's brief. There's
State your name, state your name.
sorry, it's John Taylor for the engineering department. Our report's dated December 6th. We had a couple of items, so about the stormwater management. The applicant's proposing porous pavement, which is acceptable. Or we would recommend that the board accept that. The stormwater testing that was done back in 2013. The standards have changed since then. So we would recommend that the reports that were done are completely on point and good for conceptual level as what we've seen here. We recommend that a condition be in situ testing of the material as the current stormwater management regulations require for the soils for the porous pavement. That can be done at the time of construction, so it doesn't have to delay anything here, which is why we've recommended acceptance of the stormwater report.
Okay.
Sorry, John, can I just get the wording of that condition?
Basically, at the time of construction, we would typically see, and other applicants have done it in town. At the time of construction of the porous pavement section, the permeability of the soil will be tested.
They're not gonna do porous pavement.
Yeah,
They're
I think
gonna-
there's some kind of misunderstanding. We're not, this is all in place already. We're not constructing, so
The porous pavement's installed?
yes.
Oh,
The-
okay.
yeah,
Everything's
the-
there.
I thought the.
We're just
Oh,
talking
yeah,
about the
the sidewalk.
sidewalks,
The sidewalk
a
is.
portion of the
which is, no,
sidewalk.
No, I thought they had porous pavement to be installed. It's shown on the site plan as proposed, so I assumed that it was proposed.
Are you
If it's
adding
already
any parking?
installed, then there's no requirement.
Are you adding parking spaces at all? So it's
there's
all the
no
current.
Porous,
All the porous is already.
okay,
Okay.
then that's not a requirement. We also have a comment about utilities and the treatment works approval. It looks like we need some coordination after the approval as a condition of approval for the TWA. And then there's other agency approvals, including Mercer County Planning Board, Soil Conservation District, NJDEP Construction, Discharge Permit, DNR Canal Commission, and again, the potential TWA permit.
John, can you explain a little, they're putting a new building up.
Sure.
And we have a new stormwater requirements as of, I think it was 2021, March of 2021 was when we passed that law. So will this property now meet those stormwater requirements?
It will. Their stormwater management report, as the engineer had explained, the stormwater management report had to be rerun based on the new values. Based on their analysis of the basin and our review of their analysis, the stormwater basin, the stormwater feature will be reconfigured slightly, but it's really just what outlet structure changes.
before I be called a liar, we do, reconfigure some parking stalls, so we will have to do some forest pavement to reconfigure the parking.
Okay,
So you're right. So we would agree to the testing.
okay,
For those areas.
right, in the porous areas where you,
Where we have to reconfigure the parking, yes.
okay. Right,
I apologize.
yeah, because in the report, there's not, in those two areas, there's not borings. In those areas, so if you do the testing during construction, we expect, based on the report that was provided to us from 2013, we would expect that the site's underlain by a good granular material that will be permeable. And if you've got features already in and they're not experiencing problems, then it tells you that they're gonna work.
So at the end of this project, the stormwater runoff will meet our runoff quality and recharge. Will meet our current 2021 law then.
That's correct. Quality and quantity will be addressed.
Okay. Are you okay with the waiver for, just continuing the existing, impervious sidewalk instead of, pervious sidewalk?
Yeah, given the additional porous pavement that is proposed in those two areas,
Mhm.
I think that it makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
And you're putting porous and have porous in just the stalls and not the road. Right.
Right, the two areas are stall areas.
John, 3.03, does that need to be a condition that's the technical comments will be provided? You
Yes.
guys, okay.
And I don't know if that's already been submitted or if that will be submitted, but it should be a requirement. Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Any other questions? And the applicant's okay with all the proposals by the engineer, our engineer's report?
Yes, we are.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next up, Quasi.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
Please
My
state your
name is
name.
Quasi Masood, Quazi Masood. I'm the traffic consultant for the township. We issued a letter on December 7, 2022. Basically, we had 4 comments, all pertaining to the signing and pavement marking. The applicant has addressed all of them. And they issued a amended final major site plan dated October 18, 2022. So based on that amended site plan, we do not have any comments. The applicant has addressed all the traffic comments.
And you're okay with the number of parking stalls they
Yes.
have for this proposed building?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we are okay with that.
The letter I have is November 22nd from you.
Yep. That's what we got.
That's all we
December
have.
7, we issued a letter December 7. That's the most recent letter.
Yeah, but
We only have November 22nd.
we are number 22nd.
Board members, the applicant submitted applications to get to the board and the staff originally. They have received, Ms. Mussad's review letter that you guys got. And what I asked them to do is to submit the revisions directly to Mr. Masood so he could look them over, so there wouldn't be any issues tonight. That's what.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So if anybody has any questions for me, for the board, but as of now, I mean, traffic is concerned, we don't have any comments.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do I hear any other?
Dan?
I'm sorry, Dan. I
That's
almost
okay.
forgot about you, Dan.
That's okay. I think everything's been addressed. So my report was December 5th and they've addressed everything. So comments 2, 4, 5, and 6 would be potential conditions. And there are things that we discussed this evening already.
Okay, great. And applicant's okay with all of Dan's proposed
Yes,
conditions?
yes, we are.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, we move to, close the public.
Open, public. You're-
Open the public, comments section. John, anything? Anybody else? Please, don't fight to get to the microphone. Hearing no public comments.
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. I'll entertain Martina, you want to just, kind of go over the application and conditions quickly?
Sure, I'll go backwards. So we had conditions in Mr. Dobromilski's memo 2, 4, 5, and 6.
Right.
In Mr. Masood's memo, everything has been addressed, so no conditions there. In Mr. Guzik and Mr. Taylor's memo, there is some portion of porous payment, so the 3.01 is going to be a condition. 3.03, 4.01, and then 6.
I'm sorry, I'm slow here. Does that include Mr. Taylor's comment about the pavement?
Yeah.
The
Yep.
not
Yeah.
the stall pavement, yes.
Yeah.
Soil payment.
Yes,
We have
yes, that was one of the,
And the soil testing.
we have 4 waivers from the number of parking spaces, and I'm on page 4 of Mr. Novak's memo, a waiver from the requirement for pervious materials of the concrete sidewalk. Number 3 is the offloading requirement that establishes 3 loading stalls. 1 is being provided, and then the a waiver from the number of trees in the parking lot. 62 required and 24 are being proposed, which is a slight increase from what's existing, and that was previously, a waiver was previously granted for that. No variance relief has been requested. And there was one other item which I scribbled down. I'll just don't know if you wanted to make a condition that the applicant would consider making usable roof space solar ready as far as possible.
Yeah, that should be, one of the conditions,
Sure.
where, however they can fit it in.
Yes.
Okay.
in compliance with the emergency services report.
And
I
that,
read.
thank you.
Yep.
That was the other one. Yep.
Yes, thank you.
Do we want to say anything about that the applicant should take sensibility or whatever into account in terms of things like animals testing or anything? Was there?
I'll defer to the board, but in my opinion, the market will tell them not, not to bring in a controversial tenant.
I don't think the market's really the issue. But I don't think it's as important. I raised it so we could at least have the conversation and see how we all feel. And I think it's the right verdict personally. But I think we shouldn't allow testing on lawyers either. I didn't mean to.
Okay, thank you. That kind of highlights the application and waivers and conditions. Any other points of? I'll entertain a motion. Anybody?
Move to approve PBO 06-01, Second Amendment, 19 Rossell Road, LLC.
We hear, motion by Simon, to hear a second.
Second.
Second by Anis. Please call the roll.
Mr. Rivera,
Yes.
Mr. Panko,
Yes.
Mr. Bag,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mandel,
Yes.
Mayor Narata,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Hoberman,
Yes.
Chairman Carter.
Yes. Motion carries 7-0. Congratulations. Thank you. Okay. I'll listen to any public comments on non-agenda items, obviously, so please step up to the microphone.
You keep them legal here. They're gonna take that.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and the board.
I have some updates in case you're interested on the progress of the warehouse application through the various outside agencies for which approval is needed. So I'll go through a few of these. This morning, there was a virtual meeting of the Mercer County Planning Board. And they didn't consider this yet because the application before them is not yet complete, so they can't consider it. And so there was no public comment about the application. They won't allow that until they have an actual hearing.
Which warehouse
The
application?
Clarksville Road. warehouse.
Clarksville
I'm
Road.
sorry, I should have said, yeah, all that. So they haven't done anything yet, and they will be scheduling special meetings early next year for this application. And they haven't been noticed yet. At some point, they will be noticed on the County Planning Board website. And I'm sure some people might want to make public comment at that time, but that's yet to be determined. So I'm following that, and to the extent that I can see what's happening, I'll mention it in public at council meetings or here.
Thank you.
Now, as far as NJDEP, Department of Environmental Protection, it's a very complex application. And you can actually review these on a website that they have. It's called dep.nj.gov/bulletin. They list all, bi-monthly, they give a summary of all the applications that are currently in progress and where they stand. So today I reviewed that, and the latest bulletin that involved this was on August 17th of this year. Now, there's a whole bunch of different permits that they'll need. Freshwater wetlands, 5 different kinds of permits, and the flood hazard individual permit. So I do have a printout of what they've done so far, and I can leave that with the chairman, and you can make copies if you'd like. But they haven't yet approved anything. So it's still in progress at DEP. So, Mr. Chairman, I can give you this.
Okay.
So anyone can go to the website and keep up to date with that, because I think it's a very complex thing. It'll take a while. Now, the next thing that comes up is the Delaware and Raritan Canal Commission, and they haven't taken any action yet that I can see on this. However, they are having a Zoom meeting next Thursday at 10 o'clock in the morning, and it'll be on their website. So anyone can tune into that and make public comment. And they'll probably mention where the application stands. It may not even be complete with them yet. We don't know, but you can follow that and see how it stands. Now, the only other one that I can briefly mention is NJDOT for the access to Route 1. I looked on their site. I can't find anything yet as far as an application that they have. They may have applied and it's not on the site. So just, I don't know of anything that's happening yet. So, Mr. Chairman, that's, I just wanted to bring people up to date on how it stands. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
Construction can't start until they get access to Route 1.
So I've got a general question. Did any of our staff attend League of Municipalities in November?
No.
Okay. So I was wondering if there's anything that happened at the League of Municipalities meeting that would be helpful for us to know.
Mr. Burgess was down there and he did teach a class regarding planning ethics. I think the most exciting thing that happened for that is that somebody forgot to bring the PowerPoint projector. But I can check with him and see what classes he found were the most useful. So if you have anything, I'll send it along.
Hamant and I were there, so I'm not sure what you're.
Was there anything that happened at League of Municipalities that we should know about?
Nothing good. Nothing good.
Not much. Basically, they said nothing is changing as far as affordable housing at one of the meetings, and the one that I attended, the PowerPoint worked. And they had maybe he was in the other location. And there was actually very little on stormwater. I'd expected there would be more. And that's pretty much it. No, wasn't much on there.
I've been finding that the planning lessons from the League of Municipalities have been getting less and less good, and for lack of a better word, sorry. But if anyone's ever interested for just online educational purposes, the Ohio Webcast has a weekly planning series typically on Fridays. from 2 o'clock to 3:30, I believe, or 1 o'clock to 2:30. They're free webinars that are available online. Typically, I watch them. I get a credit and a half for it. But they are available to the general public as well, so you can sign up, and they usually have a variety of different topics. So if you are looking for more up-to-date planning things that the league might not have, there's definitely options available there.
So my other question is, and I don't know if this is happening as much in New Jersey as in other parts of our nation, but it seems to me a zoning issue that's popping up in a lot of places is accessory housing.
Oh, yes, that's a big issue.
Has that hit New Jersey yet?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, that's I think you're gonna see that as a hot topic in the next few years for a number of reasons.
Go ahead and define it some more for the board.
So, yes, an accessory apartment, typically is there's two definitions of an accessory apartment. One that's been around for ages, which we're gonna put aside. That's an affordable housing strategy that some towns have adopted. It's not often used, where you can have a smaller accessory apartment that you can rent out to very low or moderate income households. Doesn't get utilized a lot. What we're talking about more is an accessory apartment unit or an accessory apartment. It's either part of an accessory structure or a part of your principal building on your dwelling. And it's essentially a smaller independent living space that's being incorporated into single family dwellings. The rationale behind it is we have an aging population, we have rising housing costs. So people who are maybe aging out of a larger single family type of dwelling may want to age into a smaller place on site. Or conversely, with rising housing prices, if somebody can't afford a single family dwelling, maybe they want to rent out or utilize a space with their parents, or rent out a space from another, single family dwelling. There's a bunch of different ways and varieties that these accessory apartments come. Sometimes, like I said, they could just be a separate structure. Sometimes it's incorporated into the dwelling, in the certain design centers, you can't even see them sometimes. Sometimes they come into the form of a tiny home in the back of a person's property. So it's a variety of different strategies to look at with an accessory apartment, should a municipality want them.
I think Princeton allows them,
Well,
because
Princeton's dealing with the issue. I don't know.
No, Princeton may, because I remember when you described it, Princeton May was complaining about how people are misusing that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
misusing it.
Yeah, misusing
It
it.
can become difficult to manage. Parking obviously is always something that you want to be able to
Right.
maintain on site. This gets more into a legal thing. I always feel uncomfortable when you restrict the utilization of an accessory apartment to a quote unquote family member, because I think that gets into a little bit of a dicey realm legally. One of the towns that I consult with, Chester Township, allows for accessory apartments, but they typically require a minimum lot size, I think, of around 5 acres or so. So very obviously very rural community.
Tiny houses on it.
Exactly, yeah. So
How is this different from renting out a room to somebody, which I think has been done?
you're looking at basically a separate living facility. So it's not just a bedroom, but kitchen, bathroom.
Or
separate
essentially
entrance,
build a
separate
separate structure on your property in your backyard,
So
and
it's
you
from-
can rent it out to somebody else.
So it's-
I remember
Or it could be
Princeton.
part of a principal dwelling
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
Which
Oh,
the
coming attractions, huh?
the second house or the part of the original dwelling?
On-site that are family members who visit outside of the state.
I have not started reviewing.
Don't touch that dial.
Okay, so I just want to wish everybody Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays, and we'll see you next year.
Next meeting is January 11th. There's a possibility, maybe back over.
Okay, and is that the farmland element review
And development application also.
and a development application?
And
Okay.
I sent everybody electronic copy of the plan.
Now, can we get a hard copy? Can we get a hard copy?
And it's just for you all, no, like, just you else. Everybody will get it.
Okay.
Thank you,
happy
everyone.
holidays, everybody. Meeting adjourned 8:38.
That's how it is.